Hello, friends of Lance. Wednesday, July 1st, the national team players had a day off today, actually. They were given the day off at the end of yesterday morning after a recovery training session. They had the afternoon off yesterday, had the morning off today, and are still off right now. But in a little while, everyone will report back at the Ridge Hotel in Best Baskin Ridge nearby. And tomorrow morning, Thursday, they'll start the first of 3 training sessions to prepare for the game against Norway. And the question will come up again about who will be Carlos Ancelotti's choice now that we won't be able to repeat the lineup again, right? He won't be able to. He broke the record, ended a streak of 16 games when he managed to repeat the lineup. But with Paquetá's injury, Paquetá is out and might be out for quite a while, right?
And we're back together again, right? I just got back from Houston today already with some information, right? Paquetá is very unlikely to play again in this World Cup. We talked to some people very close to the player, and they said that Paquetá's return is complicated, his return is complicated.
Complicated was the term they used, actually.
That we used. So it's unlikely Paquetá will play for the national team in the World Cup again. And then we quickly do the math here, right? Neymar had a grade 2 calf injury. Dr. Rodrigo Lasmar on May 28th gave a prognosis of 2 to 3 weeks. Paquetá has a grade 2 injury in the back of his thigh. We already had this information yesterday that it would be 2 to 3 weeks with the recovery being accelerated. So 2 weeks and a few days, and he would be fit maybe to be ready to play in the World Cup final, in a possible final if Brazil makes it. Yeah.
Let's just make a quick aside. Neymar's injury was in his calf.
Paquetá's is in the back of his thigh. They are different injuries. Yeah. So with Paquetá's recovery taking 2 weeks, he would have just a little time. When we say 2 weeks, it's to get back on the field to train with the ball. He's cleared by the medical department in about 2 to 3 weeks. So it's unlikely that Paquetá will be able to return to the World Cup. It's unlikely he'll play again in this World Cup. He's been undergoing intensive treatment. I spoke with another person who gave a different perspective, which is the following. If the team kept him there, they'll push it as far as they can to see what he can do. Paquetá, we saw some images that his wife posted on Instagram using that compression boot, the one with LED lights, which tries to speed up the healing of the problem he has in the back of his thigh. So, from our experience with soccer, from what we've seen, our own experience with Neymar, and the experience we're having with Rafinha too, who's already been out for 12 days with the injury and still hasn't returned to the field, he should return this week, as Dusan rightly reported yesterday. He should be back by the end of this week.
Return to training with the ball.
Training with the ball. He wouldn't be fit, for example, to play against Norway right now. But if Brazil advances to a possible quarter-final, right, England is still in the running. They even came from behind to win against the Democratic Republic of Congo today. So that's it. And then we'll start thinking about who will be Paquetá's replacement, as Dusan mentioned. We have 3 training sessions starting tomorrow. This is the team's preparation. The natural replacement would be Danilo Santos. The Botafogo player has similar characteristics. He gets forward, and scores goals. I even think that Danilo has been going through a better phase than Paquetá before the start of the Cup. He scored goals in matches under Ancelotti.
He comes in well for the national team, right? He's been coming in and scoring goals for the Brazilian national team.
Exactly. For me, the obvious choice would be Danilo. But when we look at the national team's roster and the possibilities that Ancelotti has, he would have other ways to change the team, but I think he would change the team's dynamics too much. For example, Igor Thiago could come in and Cunha would move to Paquetá's spot. It's tough. Matheus Cunha has been a very important player for this team, for this Brazilian national team. He already has 3 goals in the World Cup and has been playing well in this position.
He seems to be doing better in his current position.
Exactly. Let's go back a little bit. Hendrick, who was the one that directly replaced Paquetá in the game against Japan, it was Hendrick who came in. But we have to remember that Brazil was losing the game. They needed to win the game. So Brazil opened up its midfield just a little, putting Hendrick closer to the box. Ancelotti's intention was exactly for Hendrick to draw the defenders toward him a bit, so Vinicius would have a little more freedom on the left, which is what happened. We started to see Vinicius making more plays there after Hendrick came into the game. And then I thought of an idea that maybe Fabinho could reinforce the midfield against Norway, which is a physically stronger team, but it's not Ancelotti's style to put Fabinho in. So, analyzing all these possible situations for the national team, We see Danilo Santos having a slight edge to start. Neymar might be able to come in. This team, no. Ancelotti makes it very clear that Neymar is a guy to play closer to the box, probably replacing Matheus Cunha if needed. So, I don't know if Dusan agrees with me, but I think Danilo Santos should be the starter for this team against Norway next Sunday, right here in New Jersey, close to where we already are. We even joke that this is our home, Morristown. We have a neighbor who keeps us company here, the little squirrel. Every morning he's here. We're close to his burrow. He hasn't come out yet. I don't know if Dusan agrees, but Danilo Santos is currently the front runner for a spot in the lineup for the game against Norway.
I was going to say that it would be a surprise to me if it wasn't Danilo Santos. But Carlos Ancelotti has already caused a lot of surprises, at least for the press, in these World Cup games, but I believe it's the natural substitution, yes. It's because Ancelotti, in his list of called up players, chose players with very similar characteristics precisely for moments like this, right? Yanaka says it could be Fabinho. Fabinho is Casemiro's immediate backup, and Casemiro himself was the one who called Fabinho back last year when he was questioned during the FIFA date in Asia. He asked Casemiro, who is the player most similar to you? He said Fabinho. Fabinho was later called up. He was called up. So I think Danilo Santos would be the closest replacement for Paquetá. And I personally think he's in a better moment. He was even in a better moment than Paquetá himself before the World Cup. He was scoring goals against Botafogo. He was scoring goals for the Brazilian national team itself. So I think if you don't want to change the team's characteristics, Danilo Santos is the most suitable. And as Yanaka said, I don't think Neymar is an option. First, because Ancelotti considers him a more attacking player. Second, because Neymar would lose defensive power. Neymar doesn't have the same defensive power as Paquetá, and even less defensive power than Danilo Santos. Well, the Brazilian national team will resume training this Thursday. The CBF hasn't announced the schedule yet, but from what everything indicates, it will be the same schedule as always, with training at the end of the morning. Especially because the game next Sunday at 4 p.m. here in New Jersey, 5 p.m. in Brazil is at the same time as the opening match. CBF, the national team, had the same schedule throughout the entire period leading up to the match. They once trained in the late afternoon but found it wasn't ideal, possibly due to the heat and other factors. So yes, the national team should train on Thursday morning. Rafinha, we can also talk a little about Rafinha. Rafinha is expected to return to training with the ball, as Yanaka mentioned, this week, maybe even this Thursday. Yeah, he's still recovering from an injury. Yeah, as Yanaka also said, returning to training with the ball doesn't mean being ready to play. It's worth remembering that with Neymar, it also took a few days.
It took about a week for Neymar to be considered for the squad again and work more with the group. Actually, he returns to the field, starts doing some movements like changing direction, some sprints, and then little by little he's introduced back to the rest of the work with the group and then gets included again. I think it's very unlikely that Rafinha will be included for this game against Norway. A player we haven't mentioned as an option but who also hasn't been talked about much is Martinelli, who came on in the second half and scored the goal that secured qualification against Japan. But I also don't see Martinelli. Martinelli would come in more as a defensive player. So Martinelli came in with a different objective there, which was to play more centrally, not even his usual position. He usually plays more on the left side like Vinicius Jr. does, but it ended up working out and he did well. I think it's really worth highlighting a player people don't talk about much, and that's Bruno Guimaraes. For me, if not maybe along with Vini Jr. and Matheus Cunha, he's sharing the spotlight in the national team. Matheus Cunha is one of Brazil's standouts in the World Cup. He's a player who leaves the United States highly valued with 4 assists in the World Cup. Bruno Guimaraes, 4 assists in the World Cup. For me, he's a player who's really standing out, and he's definitely been fundamental for our Brazilian national team, right?
Well, we said that Brazil is going to face Norway, but is facing Norway good or bad?
I think it's good. It's a match that a lot of people have been talking about, that game from '98, right? That Brazil lost. They lost.
Most people watching now probably weren't even born then.
They lost there because of the penalty that Junior Baiano committed, a silly one. There's something interesting about this Norway team, right? 3 sons of 3 players who played in the '94 World Cup are on this team. Yeah, Torje, Torres, Vedic, Haaland, and there's another one whose name I can't remember right now. But anyway, that's an interesting fact. There are already some jokes about it. If Brazil couldn't beat those three Suns before, they won't lose now since they already lost in 98. Anyway, I think that's football. I think Norway has an okay team with a striker who scores a lot of goals. I don't see Norway like if Brazil manages to neutralize Haaland, like they have a very good midfielder, which is Odegaard. They have some players. They have a very good winger there too, who plays really well, which is Nusa, if I'm not mistaken, a very good player. But I don't rate Norway that highly. I rate Japan above Norway.
I completely agree.
But Norway has a player who's scoring goals in every possible way. He does it at Manchester City and started the World Cup scoring goals, keeps scoring goals, decided the last game for Norway. We've seen some images going around. Bruno, we've seen images of Gabriel Magalhães marking Haaland. Really strong, intense battles, the two of them grabbing each other. There's a rivalry between Arsenal and Manchester City from the Premier League. So I think we have players who know Haaland. Yeah, they know he's a tough player to mark. But I think it's a game where if we can play the kind of soccer we've been playing, if we can play the way we've been playing, I think Brazil has everything it takes to qualify for the quarterfinals of the World Cup.
Remembering that it's going to be a match against a European team which Brazil hasn't beaten in a knockout stage since the 2002 World Cup. But from now on in the World Cup round of 16, you can't keep choosing or hoping for this or that opponent anymore. It's the World Cup. Brazil will eventually have to play and defeat a European team.
You can't pick your opponents if you want to be world champion, right?
It's meant to boost their confidence, and I think it's well timed. Because Brazil, first of all, has been improving since the group stage, and second, the way the victory was achieved on Monday, with Brazil playing better for most of the game, falling behind on the scoreboard and still having the physical, but mainly the mental strength to come back and turn the game around, which was also something that hadn't happened in a long time.
Since 2002 as well, against England in the World Cup quarterfinals.
So I think this is the right moment to face Norway.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, let me tell you, this is my 5th World Cup, okay? This is the first World Cup where I see Brazil improving as the tournament goes on. In 2010, my first one, Brazil was already on a roll from before. With the 2007 Copa America and the Confederations Cup, the team was really strong with Dunga, and then suddenly they lost to the Netherlands and got eliminated just like that.
That was because of specific events in the game.
Exactly. In 2014, the national team started to decline during the World Cup. Actually, against Chile, they didn't play well. Pinilla hit that shot on the post that almost turned the game around, and the team would have been eliminated right there in the round of 16 of the World Cup. And then the team kept declining while Colombia played their game. 2 goals there from set pieces, goals by the defenders, Thiago Silva, and a beautiful free kick by Davi Luiz. Colombia increased the pressure and scored a goal. And Neymar had that injury problem. Zuniga's tackle to his back to Neymar's spine, which made him leave the game, ending the World Cup for him right there. And Tait's teams were those that arrived at the World Cup in great shape but started to decline during the tournament. So I see the opposite happening in this 5th World Cup that I'm covering. The national team is improving. They got a fantastic result against Japan. They managed a comeback in a World Cup, especially in the way it happened.
50th goal.
In stoppage time, Brazil was pressing Vini Jr., making that move where he almost scored one of the best goals of the World Cup. So I think Brazil is coming in strong. And that's good, okay? Because we've been seeing France has been really impressive, right? I think the team that impressed me the most in this World Cup is France. It's not that they win the game whenever they want, but when they speed up the game. And Olise, Mbappé, Dembélé, everyone starts playing, moving the ball around. That's when France really works and wins by as much as they want, right?
About that, I'm going to have the audacity to disagree with Carlo Ancelotti, who said in a press conference the other day that he didn't see any team standing out. Way above, none of them are, but France, for me at this moment, is the team to beat. I think France is playing slightly better and more attractive football than the other favorites. We used to talk a lot about Germany, but when Germany faced a more defensive opponent,
Spain too, they made it through. It was a bit rough, but anyway.
Argentina has been winning, but anyway.
The opponent's quality is questionable. With all due respect to Argentina, Messi, the records he broke, the game against Jordan, the Jordanian goalkeeper, I think they wanted to boost Messi's record, because they set up the wall the way they did. Anyway, I'm not going to argue about it here. The merit of that seems pretty clear.
I was ready to watch the master Messi.
I was willing to see Messi score a goal on the field. You know, because let's see, Argentina is going to face an opponent that seems to be a bit better than the ones they've faced so far in the bracket. But Argentina's path is much easier because of the draws, the defeats, the big teams that have been knocked out along the way. Let's see, let's hope for Argentina for me to be eliminated, okay? For me, I want Argentina to be knocked out soon.
If they're not eliminated, hopefully, God willing, Brazil will have the chance in the semifinals.
So Brazil can handle that task. But before that,
For you to get past Norway and England, look,
just a reminder, I've covered many Brazil and Argentina matches, okay? But I don't remember seeing Brazil lose to Argentina. I didn't cover the 2021 Copa America.
I did.
I didn't cover Brazil's recent defeat, but rather a lesser-known national team match that few will remember. But we beat Argentina 3-0 in the 2007 Copa America final. They had Messi, Tevez, Riquelme, Mascherano, Veron, and Zanetti, all of them. Their team was amazing, and we came in as underdogs 3-0, and it could have been more. Then there was the 4-1. Doni was the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper was Doni on that team. There was Josue, Mineiro, Wagner, Love. Anyway, the Brazil team, they were going through a transition at that time. Ronaldinho and Kaká didn't go to that Copa America. Julio Batista scored a goal in that game. It was Dunga. The coach was Dunga, and Dunga also gave Argentina some other beatings. 4-1 in the Confederations Cup, 4-1. Monumental de Nunes, 4-1 with Luis Fabiano dominating. So I was at those games. So look, if it's Brazil and Argentina, if everything goes well, I'm a lucky charm, you know?
All right, then, you know that the World Cup is here at Luz.